I'm going to split this video into two parts. First of all, let's reflect on Pochettino losing his job and why that has happened. Then, of course, you have to think about the successor. There's a lot going on there. Let's begin with the situation when it comes to Pochettino leaving Chelsea, which I've got to be honest, is a massive shock. But I have heard a few things recently that I've heard them from two different people, and I just don't know if it's true or not. But let's get into the weeds of this. When it comes to Pochettino, on the surface of it, when you're thinking about a manager who's had the 2024 that he's had, I would say two things. First of all, I would say you've got to be kind of careful about this. I've said this a few times recently, but any team that kind of kills it in that last 10 games, pinch of salt for me. Because often, especially when it's those top teams, I think about Arsenal in previous years. I think about Liverpool in previous years, before Klopp and before Arteta. Both those teams would often kind of have high expectations going into the season, come out of this, come into that and come out the blocks really, really slowly. By February, March, you're trying to save your season, but at the same time, the best you can do is finish in the top 4 or Europe, and then you go on a run. Hopes rise, and then you start the next season thinking this will be the new season. But it's that pressure and dealing with that pressure that is something that, you only know, and I think you have to judge that first half of the season because it's a bit like a game of football itself. That game state, I think, affects it. That said, Pochettino has had to deal with a lot. Let's talk about what has been said first and foremost. So, great exclusive by Matt Law, I think it is, in the Telegraph. Mauricio Pochettino has left Chelsea by mutual consent after meeting with sporting directors Paul Winstanley and Lawrence Stewart. So what I will start off with there is two sporting directors. That is just, there's a lot to do at a football club. I get it. But those two need to work in harmony. And then you have a manager that has to work in harmony with that as well. Not something I've heard of a lot when it comes to two sporting directors. I might be wrong on that one, but there's likely going to be miscommunication at some point of view. But the big thing here is that it seems that Pochettino agreed to his departure late on Tuesday morning following the club's end-of-season review. So this end-of-season review, that's, I think, where there has been possible loggerheads. Now, the top line of it of going, just get rid of him because they didn't fancy him, that doesn't make sense with how it has gone. Because, again, on the face of it, you don't sack a manager with his pedigree who has gone through the growing pains that he has gone through. So on the face of it, it's not fair. It isn't. It's really not. And actually, it's a new starting position. You've got to have a million new relationships with the new manager who comes in. It's another, mark to the fact that this is a club that doesn't really understand what it's doing and is not aligned in what it wants to do as well when it comes to that head coach who is that deity of every football club. He is the guy. He is the front man. And those sporting directors. And actually, it's the sporting directors that have a lot of power in these things. Of course, the ownership as well. And we've seen this a few times now. So at that end of season review, I think what would have been interesting, I don't think they would have been misaligned on how the season has gone. I don't think you can be that stupid. Think of the players that they've been missing this year. Look, in terms of, we've done a video on the things that were wrong with Pochettino and this team. And way back when I said, I don't think he'll survive. And the reason I didn't think he'll survive is because of kind of the Chelsea element of it. I don't think I'm right on that. I think I'm wrong on that. I think this is something a little bit different. But again, on that end of season review, if you think about that, I think you know what happened with Chelsea this year. I think they're low on leadership. I think it's obviously a young group. And I think there's been a lot of players that have sort of struggled with confidence, but actually have grown and momentum has been gained as the season has progressed. Also, you've got to think about Chilwell being out for ages. Reece James being out for ages. And Kunku being out for ages. The goalkeeper situation not being great. That's a lot of things that you've got to kind of deal with. And the big money signing things that we are going to naturally throw in the face of a young group time and again when it's not working out. So that's all something you can't just gloss over. You have to go through. And Pochettino's kind of gone through. So I think when it comes to the end of the season, getting qualification, an overall disappointment because I think going into pre-season, you expected that little bit more. But it was on the right trajectory. So something else is at play. Here's my hunch. My hunch is two things. Either the easy thing to do here is make the sporting directors and the ownership the villains here. A rumour that I have heard from two separate sources is that when it comes to the training ground, the training has been minimal. Now, again, I don't know if that is true. All I can say is that it has come from two sources, which I guess maybe gives it a little bit of credence. Maybe it just makes it, hearsay. I don't know. But that's one angle, right? And there will be more digging and the truth will reveal itself. The second element of it, I would suggest, is that Poch hasn't got what he wants in terms of the players that he wants to keep for next season. There may be sales that need to be made or new players that they want to bring in, and that is where the tension may be. The third thing, and I think this comes in the quotes here, as to why it seems very amicable, is the fact that with all the struggles and strains that he has had to deal with, there is a Bayern Munich job just waiting for him, isn't it? It does feel like that way. Special option number 4 is that was the next manager sort of really there and in waiting for some time. We'll talk about that in just a second. But let's go through some of the quotes here. Because, as I say, it is very amicable in terms of what's being said here. If I scroll down a little bit, you can see from the sort of Chelsea statement, Poch spoke himself, right? The quote from him: "Thank you to Chelsea ownership group and sporting directors for the opportunity to be a part of this football club's history. The club is now well positioned to keep moving forward in the Premier League and Europe in years to come." Flexing a little bit, making sure he suggests that they were moving forward, and of course they got that European qualification, so he wanted to get that in there as well. But him being kind of calm and able to step away, I'm intrigued to know what that means for the money situation. The second thing, what Chelsea have said: sporting directors Lawrence Stewart and Paul Winstanley said, "On behalf of everyone at Chelsea, we would like to express our gratitude to Mauricio for his service this season. He will be welcome back to Stamford Bridge. He will not be locked out." That's important. I think that's really, really crucial here. I wonder if Todd Boehly was trying to save the situation because he took Pochettino out for dinner on Friday before this end of season review. And something's a bit fishy about this bit because, look, in his press conference after that final game, he said, "All I can tell you is on Friday night, Todd invited me for a dinner, and it was a very nice dinner," said Poch after the game. "But I don't know about the rumours about the review. The review obviously came, and maybe he was upset about that. My staff tomorrow are flying to their holidays. I'm going to stay in London for a few more days. I'm always open. My phone is going to be on." Again, that does feel a little bit cryptic in the sense that there could be something going on in terms of a come and get me plea or a feeling that the writing was on the wall. Asked what was discussed at the dinner, he said, and this is interesting: "I am not going to explain. It is only for you to know that I was with him. I'm not going to talk about this. If I invite you along," and then he does a joke about that. But the fact that he wants people to know that Todd Boehly and him had dinner, that feels like something like Poch isn't going to go, "Todd, do you fancy dinner?" The invitation comes the other way. And why was that happening? Is that to sort of smooth over paper over the cracks, smooth, whatever the phrase is I'm trying to find? That's interesting to me. Let's talk about the runners and riders then, because I think this is the other thing that's really, really interesting here. So who is going to be the next manager? And there's a few names. Let's go through them. First of all, the one that it reeks of is, of course, De Zerbi. So, but among the minds likely to be considered will be Stuttgart's Sebastian Hoeneß, Girona's Michel, Ipswich Town's Kieran McKenna, who has been lined up by Brighton as well, and Leicester City's Enzo Maresca. The De Zerbi shout, it feels, and we've seen some things on Twitter and rumours there as well. Again, this is all just speculation, but the feeling that De Zerbi has been pinched by Chelsea again. They've done it good. And this idea that he was always going to go to Chelsea and they've just had to sort this section of, the movement out. That is a fascinating move if De Zerbi goes. A lot of people kind of are wobbling over just how great he is as a manager. I think the upward management, which is absolutely integral as a manager, like we did the ripple effect. We had Mark Bonner on it, who's a manager, and he was talking about that upward management of a sporting director and how crucial that is in your survival as a manager, because ultimately You are a team, and if you become enemies, you're in trouble. And De Zerbi said that they couldn't reach an agreement. Again, what does that really mean? Again, it's a mutual thing. So there's probably a lot of things being hidden. I would not be surprised if De Zerbi was the next manager of Chelsea. And how they would set up would be a really interesting video to make. It feels like it's going to be De Zerbi. But when it comes to these other guys, you've got Hoeneß, who very direct, loves to press. A lot of goals come from that. And also a Stuttgart team that likes those one-on-ones out wide. That would suit the wide play and the wingers that are there at Chelsea right now. They are strong in that area. I think Madueke's had a great end to the season. Big fan of his. Mudryk is a player that obviously they're desperate for him to come good. And of course the fullbacks as well. Jonas Michel, we'll come back to him. Kieran McKenna, of course, you know, we've been able to see a bit more about him with Ipswich Town. Again, on the Ripple Effect, we did a whole podcast on Kieran McKenna, how they play, how Ipswich did what they did in terms of back-to-back promotions, which I think only 3 teams have ever done. He is a very, very smart manager. He's a great manager. He's seen the spotlight close up, being involved at Man United. So that would, you know, be good for him, but, you know, be something that he could utilise. But is he capable of not getting eaten up, gobbled up, swallowed up by Chelsea, a bit like Graham Potter did? Massive jump, massive leap. And I would suggest that the Brighton job is the better stepping stone to a club like Chelsea because it's a well-trodden path. Also lined up Enzo Maresca. Again, very different style of play. Kieran McKenna, they do like to play, but can go direct as well. Hoeneß, a lot more direct. Maresca, the polar opposite. The polar opposite. Pop, pop, pibbity, pop, 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 possession-based football. And Michel, we've got a video on Michel. That's another good option. I think Michel is a nice option because I think there's a purity to him. I think he's very emotionally intelligent. I think he suits the glamour of Chelsea and Chelsea managers, and you might laugh at that and might think it's not a thing. It is a thing. And so Pochettino, I think if he hadn't come from Tottenham, I think would probably have a better situation when it comes to all of this, because it does play a part. It does play a little bit of a factor, but aside from that, he is that glamorous kind of manager that suits a Chelsea as a football club, in my opinion. So Michel, in terms of the football that would be played, I think could be a really good option. And actually the fact that maybe not enough people know about him in the Premier League, that could help as well. But to go to a championship, obviously both promoted, but a championship manager is odd, right? So odd when you're thinking about, and management's so odd. There's this feeling that you've got to step into management, you've got to step into a line of work and be the best and unbelievable straight away. When actually in every other field, you get better as you go along. And Unai Emery, for example, he's a better manager now than he was at the start of it. So to give up on Pochettino and go to these younger managers, it feels funny to me. Very, very odd. And that is why I believe that Roberto De Zerbi will be the next manager of Chelsea, in my opinion. And actually, I would not be surprised if Pochettino went to Bayern Munich. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below.